All right. All right, Gus. I appreciate
All
you for
right.
hopping on, bro.
Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. This has been a long time coming.
For sure.
Um, so yeah, kind of want to take this time to just give us an idea of you, like where you come from, your
Yep.
story, and where you are now.
Okay. So I'm Gus, freshman at Central Michigan University. I started playing basketball when I was probably around the age of 6, 7. Um, and then at age 10, I started playing AAU, where I actually met you, Hoop Masters, with
Sir.
John Fisher, one of the best coaches, developers, mentors, whatever you want to call them. Um, So I played AAU basically my entire childhood. Basketball was always my life, like everything, every day after school, practice at Uni High, Venice High, wherever John had us. Weekends would always be in Orange County playing 4 or 5 games a weekend, probably too much, but we were always playing. And then so I went to high school at Santa Monica High School, my local high school. And then my senior year, actually, I moved to a school in Philadelphia, Archbishop Wood, and then from there, I did a prep year in Massachusetts, actually, and then now I'm in Michigan.
Nice.
Yeah,
So, like, explain to people because it's normal for us, but like,
yeah,
explain because I train kids and they don't understand like the commitment and time and effort that it takes at such a young age to
yeah,
get to the level that you're at,
yeah,
and just to even play on a high school team. So, could you like kind of go more in depth?
yeah. So when I first started playing basketball, it was really just your normal YMCA. I had a league called Penmar I played at. It was just whenever you go to practice twice a week, play on the weekends, just have fun. Doesn't really matter. You're a kid. You're just you're just being active. And then once I joined Hoop Masters, it was kind of a not a shocker, but it was a whole change of reality because I went from just kind of dilly-dallying to, okay, now I have a coach at practice yelling at me. I'm a kid. John didn't care what age you were. Coach yelling at me, holding me accountable. I'm going to practice from 1 to 2 times a week, just kind of like playing around, to now 4 times a week of structured basketball and structured skill work. And then on the weekends, playing in competitive AAU games. Like, we were young, but they were always competitive. John always brought the intensity, whether 8 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, didn't matter. And it's from that young age, it takes a certain mindset to be able to every day you go in, really do the same thing. When we were kids, John would have us do left hand layups for literally half of practice, going as hard as you can, and you see other kids, like when you're at that young age, they're going home, riding skateboards, biking, just chilling after school. When you're getting ready to go home, whatever, do whatever homework you had, and then straight to practice. And then when you
Prepare
get
for
practice,
war.
right, literally war. And so it's a whole different mindset. And a lot of kids, and we'll probably get into this later, but when you get into that structure so early, you're really specializing in that sport, and that comes with its advantages and disadvantages. Um, but yeah, no, the commitment is second to none, and it teaches you a lot outside of just athletics.
100%. I totally
Yeah,
agree. I'm so grateful for that
yeah,
experience, even though I got hurt a lot,
yeah,
like I wouldn't want anything to change just because of the
right,
all the things you learn going through that.
right,
Um, yeah, really
sure,
build some resilience. But
yeah,
talk about the importance of, or like the advantage actually of being exposed to that young, and then
yeah,
what you went through in high school, and then what you're
yep.
going through now, because it doesn't get easier.
No,
It like
no,
it
it only
gets
gets
it
harder.
gets harder,
Yeah,
and sometimes coaches won't even yell at you,
yeah,
and they'll just not play you. And it's
right.
like, yo,
Not talk
what?
to you.
Like, right.
Yeah,
So kind of talk about like the resilience you developed there and how that uh led
yeah.
into uh high school and college.
Yeah, so with young and playing AAU at a high level, I learned how to really be coachable. John, when he would talk to us, he'd be really enthusiastic, yelling and stuff, but you'd have to see the message and then relay that message to your game. And that, that's you see that every day now with college coaches. They'll scream at you. Sometimes they won't even talk to you, like you just said, but you just see the message in coaching. And as I got on to high school, that that did wonders for me because every other coach after that I was able to know, okay, take, all right, maybe I don't like the way he's telling me this, but why is he telling me this? What's it going to do for me? And this the resilience of the game is probably the hardest part that comes to, like you said, whether it's injuries, not playing, not doing as well as you want to, you always have to be able to bounce back. And I really learned that my freshman year in high school. I was playing varsity at Samo. I began the season playing some pretty solid role player minutes. And then as the season went on, kind of, my minutes went down a little bit. My coach never told me why, but I was a freshman, I was young, I didn't really know much. Um, and so then, after that, okay, that whole year, I just kind of went about things. Like, I went to practice, played hard at practice, really no extra work aside from my body trainer, as you know, Eric Red.
Yes, sir.
Um, um,
The
and
GOAT.
so, yeah, for sure. So I didn't really put in any extra work, I just kind of went about things, and I was a good player from what John and my whole upbringing, and I was smart, so I was able to get on the court. But then when that COVID actually hit after that year, so my plan going in was funny. I wasn't gonna play AAU that year. I kind of sat down with my dad and stuff. I thought about it. I was like, there's a lot of skill work I think that needs to get done, and I've played
Right.
so much over the years. Maybe playing AAU because I'm 15 years old. I'm not getting recruited at 15, even though
Right.
I talked to a few coaches, but none of that stuff is significant. Um,
Mhm.
but thankfully, actually, COVID hit, and I took that entire off. I mean, it was longer than an off season, but that entire time, I would just do a ton of skill work, and then me and Eric really worked to bulletproof my body, from the knees, hips, and feet. And that foundation I built that year drastically changed my game. I started moving
Right.
different. My
Yeah.
shot got better, my handles got way better. I started doing a different type of training by this guy named Michael Lancaster. So that combination of him and Eric changed my game, and then I went from few minutes freshman year, some small role player minutes to the next year, an all league player my sophomore year. And then, just that COVID, during COVID, I wake up early, go to my friend's house, work out in the morning, come do whatever schoolwork I had, work out again in the afternoon, work with Eric for, hour and a half in the backyard, when we had to have masks on, be
Mhm.
far away from each other. And just that was a way different type of grind that I've ever done. Like with Hoop Masters, you go to practice. They were really hard practices, but the extra work never really came in for me until that, the summer of my freshman year. And that
Right.
changed my game, changed my habits, and allowed me to get where I'm at today.
Mhm. And that honestly speaks to individualization because you can't
Yep.
really get that in a team setting.
Yep.
So, yeah, having someone who knows your body, how like where you need
Yep.
to be improved is that's
Yep.
huge.
Yep.
That's why like there is no best exercise
No.
or like best routine,
No.
or even if you have a routine, it might not be the best one throughout season because that it
Hmm.
things change, so you got to be adaptable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So
For
talk
sure.
about did that like totally shift your way, like the way you viewed working out and stuff? Because growing up,
100%.
like it's all grind, 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 and then
Yep.
like you get some time off and you get to work for an extended period with Eric. Like, how does that fully shift your how you view your workouts?
Yeah. So, as you said, as a kid, it's just grind, 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 practice, 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 play, play, play. There's no really individual time where you're by yourself and say, okay, what am I lacking in? What am I strong at? What do I need to work on? What
Right.
part of my movement's off? And a lot of that, I think that kids have trouble with nowadays is they don't know what. Like you have to have the knowledge to do that too. So thankfully, I had
Yeah.
somebody like Eric who was able to, he came to my games. He was able to look at my movement. This is off. You're not ample in this way. We have to fix this, and we were able to work on it for a long period of time, and that changed. So, for a lot of kids, it's hard. What I would tell them is, just study your film, study other players, and you really have to. It's like schoolwork. Take a pen and paper. You know, why is this movement off? What do I have to do better here? How do I do it? And it's hard to do on your own when you're young because you don't really understand the stuff. So
Right.
it's great if you have somebody to help you, like an Eric. But just that side of the game and working smarter, but then also working hard at that changes your entire game completely.
100%.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
to your point, I would say study that, but also work your feet, bro. I
Yep.
swear
Yep.
there's like so many kids or two kids that I'm training right now. Like we've just worked on their feet and they're dunking, and they weren't
Yep.
like barely able to play because they were in so much knee pain. But
Yep.
just because we strengthen the feet, get them on their tripods, spread
Yep.
the toes out, uh, do some low level plyo, stuff like that, work their
It's their
arch.
foundation.
Right,
Yeah.
it's your foundation. And it's the whole
Yep.
reason I started this
Yep.
whole
Yep.
one soul thing. So
Yep.
yeah, I would say work the feet and study film, 100%.
Yeah.
Knowledge of the game. So that
Yep.
leads into my next question is what do you think are the most important skills like for hoopers coming up?
So that's also tough to say because, a lot of that's determined by the type of player you are, what your
Right,
build is.
right.
But for me personally, um, I mean, really what it all comes down to is execution, what your coach wants. But at the same time, you want to be able to execute what your coach wants, but if everyone's going to want to outgrow their role. If you don't do that, you're never going to, develop and get to higher levels. So being able to execute your role, but also work on individual skills. For me, I always felt the two biggest things was I had to be an elite ball handler. I'm a smaller guard, and to handle pressure and to get guys into plays and create plays, you have to be an elite ball handler. And then the other thing is obviously shooting. Today's day and age, you have to be able to extend the floor. If you can't, you're basically unplayable if you're not above 6'10". Um, so you have to keep the defense honest, having an elite jump shot, and be able to create plays with an elite ball handling. So those are the two main focuses I always had.
Mhm.
I was always a good shooter, so that I just kind of kept the same and just worked on it, worked on it. Ball handling came, a change with the movement. In the mornings, I would just go to my garage before school, just do tennis ball handling, training my brain, separating the sides and being able to do one thing with one hand, use my offhand, and that completely changed my game.
So how would you know when you have an elite handle or an elite jump shot? Like is there a make threshold in practices and also like
Yeah, it's hard to
ability with
say.
the ball?
For me, you're never good enough. But once you realize, okay, if you're able to confidently shoot any shot you want from any distance and confidently handle the ball against any type of pressure, I think that's when you know, okay, like
Hmm.
my handle or my shot is like that.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say also is like if you mainly get catch and shoots in the game, your workout should all just be catch and shoots.
Right.
Or if you
Right.
get one dribble pull-ups in the game, only
Yep.
do one dribble pull-ups.
Yep.
Like do shit you're gonna do in the game because I like that's something that took me a while to learn because I would just go and just shoot a bunch of shots, work on a bunch of different moves, but I wasn't necessarily gonna use them in the game
Yep.
until I got to high school and I had some really good coaching where
Yeah.
the workouts like were just completely different. They're super
Right.
efficient. They were hard, but they were efficient and they were shorter. They were like 45
Hmm.
minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think with training skills in general, but specifically shooting, I kind of have two different types of workouts when it comes to that. So one of them will just be like what you said, game shots, coming down, pin downs, coming off ball screens, whatever I'm going to get in a game. And then the other side is training the characteristics of your jump shots. For me, that would be like chair shooting. It's also great when you're injured or the load you want to decrease it. Chair
Right.
shooting, working on balance, different lift points shooting. So that it might not you're not going to shoot in a chair in a game, but the characteristics you build from doing that are directly going to apply. So having those two types, developing characteristics and then at the same time game realistic shots. So you're training your mind. Oh, I've seen this pin down a million times. Like this is butter when it goes in. So
Hmm.
I'd say those are the two most important things to train. And that just goes for all skills, ball handling, shooting, whatever the case may be, finishing,
Right.
defense, which is
De
not trained much.
right. Defense. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about defense, the importance of
Yeah.
defense. Because I know you were locking some dudes up when you went away to
Yeah. Yeah.
your your high
For
school.
sure. My coach always says this. He's like 98% of the game is played without the ball, and that's if you're a point guard. So for other people, it's even less. What are you going to do
Right.
in that 98%? And for me, defense, again with Eric, he trained that from when I first started with him when I was around 11, 12 years old. We do bandit slides. We would do, like different movements to get into your slides and stuff like that. And when you train laterally, because a lot of people, they don't, you'll walk into a gym, you'll see them just doing these slow defensive slides and then turn. It's not game like and it's not realistic. So when you train your body to move efficiently laterally and then at the same time play a lot of games and practice and guard people, your body will pick up on movements and guarding people becomes a lot easier. And it's half of the game. You're playing
Right.
defense half the game, offense half the game. So if you can't guard, you're not going to play at a high level. It's impossible.
Right. And also as the speeds of the game get
Yep.
higher, you have to be able to train at speed.
Hmm.
So that's why I think the shorter, intense workouts is the
Yep.
way to go over the
Yep.
long run.
Yep.
Um,
For sure.
so we talked about like developing and acquiring a skill set and a bag. What
Hmm.
would you like, how did you design your weeks like in high school when you were younger so that
Yep.
you could get better at all those things? Because it's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a lot to
No, it
do.
is for
And
sure.
you also need to recover too. So,
Yeah. That's the biggest part is availability. But what my days would look like, especially like my sophomore, junior years, when I was living here, in the mornings before school, I couldn't really get at our school gym, so I just go to my garage, 45 minutes to an hour, just straight ball handling. Wouldn't even look at a rim because it was too early to shoot. So I would just close my garage, an hour of just straight ball handling, get ready, go to school. That would be the toughest part from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. I just can't get any work in. You're just at school, but that part's also, of course, important.
part of being a
Um,
student.
yeah, it is. And so, right after school, we usually have practice, probably about 2, 3 hours. So, get that out of the way. And then at night, I'd have Eric probably like 3 to 4 times a week. So I'd either go straight to Eric, we do movement, whatever was bugging me, he would, take care of. And then if I had time later at night, I would do more, whether it was shooting, whatever I thought I needed to get ready for our next games. But I kept the load light. Mornings would be 45 minutes, night would be 30, 45 minutes, and then, you know, after that, just rest. And Eric was terrific in taking care of injuries. I was never injured. My From childhood all the way to my junior year in high school. When I was every time I lived here in California with Eric training me all the time, I was never injured. It wasn't until my senior, or sorry, not senior, my post grad year in high school, I got injured, but that was one of the one type of injuries you can't control. I just landed on somebody's foot bad.
Mhm.
And it could have been a lot worse if I didn't have strong feet from all the work.
Right. Strong ankles in those different
Yep.
ranges. Yeah, those ankle
Yep.
tilts, banded
Yep.
ankle tilts.
Band angle tilts.
Key.
That's what, if you could tell anyone what's the best exercise, that might be up there.
That might be up there. Yeah.
Hmm.
Seriously. Yeah. It's funny. I was watching, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this docu series called Starting Five on Netflix. Have you seen
Yep.
it?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. In episode 2 or 3, I was watching it and Jimmy Butler was talking with his trainer. And he was like, yeah, like 80% of our workouts are just from the ankle down.
Yep.
Trying
Yep.
to tell these people, man, but it's
That's
not cool. It's not cool. So
right.
it's like hard to catch. It's not going to be on Instagram,
Exactly.
except my page. It's going to be on my page
Right.
for sure. But yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's why
so
Jimmy's so durable. Jimmy's not hurt often and he plays so long, and it makes sense now. I'm
yeah.
sure LeBron's the same way. He's just a bit more secretive with his training than other people.
Yeah, he is secretive with his training. He also has
Yeah.
some messed up feet. They're gnarly.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's so interesting. So it's like, I think that's what I love so much about this thing. It's like there is no perfect. Everyone's got a different
No.
style. Everyone's got a different
Yep.
technique. Some stuff works
Yep.
for other people, but not for others. So it's like
Yep.
being able to take all that information, synthesize it, and then apply it.
Yep. It's funny, Eric and I were just talking about that yesterday. I was there, and he had mentioned, he was talking about, with injuries, you can't, like with fascia, you can't always train it the same way. You might not get the results. And he actually gave you as an example. He said something, with was wrong with your eye, or something,
Right,
so you weren't able to get in certain positions. And,
right,
just everybody's completely different. You can't train one person the same way as another. There's going to be
right,
similarities, but you can't train them the same at all.
right. What he was talking about, I had some concussions when I was young,
Hmm.
and I guess in my rehab and recovery, I didn't they didn't take me through a protocol. So there were some spots in my vision where it was double. It's better
Yeah.
now. It's still a little bit needs a little bit of work.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I wasn't able to like push off in certain ways because my
Right.
vision was compromised. So it's
Yeah.
just like there's really levels to this. And
Yeah.
it's yeah. So
It's a threat to your body.
right. Yeah. Threats.
It's crazy.
So not a whole bunch of injuries.
No. Well, at least
So
living here. So
so
my
how many times a week were you working out? Or how many workouts were you doing a week?
probably close to 25 to 28 a week.
A week.
Yeah. But
Yeah, that's nuts.
but but at the same time, the load of them was really I was really calculated with that. There
Yeah,
was not my all my individual workouts, unless I didn't have a game or practice, would be stationary. My feet would rarely be moving. There'd be no pounding. But I knew that at the same time, as I have to be careful with not getting injured, but at the same time, I have to get a lot better if I want to get to where I want to be. So it's having
right,
the balance between the two.
right. Yeah, my senior year, my goal is just to be able to make it through the season. So,
Right.
like you're saying, I would get all my shots up on my back. I put a piece of tape up on the ceiling and
Yep.
I drew a little
Yep.
black circle and I would just
Uh-huh.
stay, I would work on eye drills. I do my breathing so that I could with the
Yep.
with the
The
the expand
device.
the expand
Yeah.
alone. And then
Yep. That's a great
I would
device.
cycle through eye drills, breathing, and then I would just get shots up and then
Yep.
stationary ball handling. And that
Yep.
was it. And that was
And that
it.
makes a difference. Again, it doesn't may not look cool, but your body you could almost just literally lay in your bed, close your eyes for 20 minutes and just visualize a workout, and you will reap similar benefits to actually working out. It's not the same, obviously, but that's just how the mind works.
Yeah. And no, it I mean it's they say it is the same actually in the brain.
Yeah.
I'm reading this book on neuroplasticity, and there's
Hmm.
studies where they had a group, they took one group and they just had them flex their finger, like max contraction.
Yep.
They had them do it in real life, like actually flex their finger. Then they had another
Hmm.
group close their eyes and visualize it. And they did the same sets and reps and frequency over an extended period of time.
Right.
And the strength outcomes when they strength tested them was very similar, like
Wow.
damn near the same.
It's crazy how the brain
So,
works.
right. Yeah.
Crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
So, do you do a lot of visualization?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I didn't really, Eric would mention it to me, but I was like, I can't get myself to focus on this. But I would say probably like my senior year, I started doing it only before games. I would just kind of like before games, I'd take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, meditate and just think,
Mhm.
what's going to happen in the game. And then I started like, there literally would be times in games I would, come off a screen that I had already envisioned and be like, oh, I already saw this before. I know what's going to happen. And, so then I just started doing it more and I did it before games, but then I also started to do it, during trainings. Like if I miss 3 shots in a row, okay, like take a second, close my eyes. All right, let me vision this, do it again. All of a sudden, everything's fixed. So I
Mhm.
started to learn that mental side of it. And I wish I learned that earlier. Like if I could go back to
Yeah.
my freshman year, I would tell myself, train the brain. No matter how boring it may seem, train the brain. And, I started doing it ever since, and it's helped me a lot for sure.
And you talk about load management, staying off the feet. I would do that too.
Yep.
I would literally visualize myself in first person, and then I'd also visualize myself from like above or like to the side as a
Yep.
player, like
Right.
looking at the whole thing.
Yep.
So yeah, I know that takes a lot of focus,
It
but
does.
I
It
think
does.
that's good, especially now because we got our phones and we need time away from them.
Yeah, for
So
sure. For
yeah,
sure.
100%. That's dope, bro. Okay,
Yeah.
so 25 workouts a week. But I will
Yeah.
say this, we were talking about individualization. If I did
Mhm.
that, I would have broken myself. And I did
Right.
break myself.
Yeah.
And that's why I was hurt so much because I was trying to be on that Kobe grind. But
Yeah.
it's great if you can do it. But if you can't, try those other things. There's a whole bunch of
Yep.
alternatives you can do
Yep.
um, to keep your skills sharp without having to put a whole bunch of load on your legs. So,
Yeah. Definitely.
cool. So, what about off season? I know when you're playing in high school and stuff, you don't have an off season. Every season is
Yep.
on.
Yep.
But like, how about now? Since you're in off season
Yeah.
right now, what is that gonna look like?
Yeah, no, I like it a lot more now than high school. So now, like now that I'm home, my training schedule, it's a little unique. But
Actually,
so
can I pause you for a second?
yep, yep.
Let's talk about recovery in that 25 workouts a week schedule. How did
Hmm.
you recover?
Okay.
Because I feel like that's so important for these young high
Yep.
school kids.
Yep. So, when I mentioned that one of my workouts on those days would be Eric, that wasn't really too much a workout. We'd lift a little bit, but it was mainly like 30 minutes of just soft tissue work, of stretching, fascial work, um, and doing that 4 to 5 times a week. And if I came to him like, oh, after this game, this part of my foot is hurting, he'd work on the knee, the hip, the calf, what movement may have been thrown off. So the next game, that pain is neutralized, so it doesn't build up over time.
Right.
I'd say that was the biggest part of my recovery, and then on my own, I would do a lot of, before every game and after every game, I would do a hot Epsom salt bath. Just, it made my body feel nice, so I just kept doing it, and it worked for me. I didn't ice a lot, unless I really had to. Wasn't the biggest fan. And then just, work with a Theragun. Whatever Eric said, I'll keep working on this. And that was really it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That allowed my body to hold up for a long time.
I was on the same type of thing. I would do a whole bunch of soft tissue work, banded work,
Yep.
Theragun. Um, I wouldn't really ice either because we know that actually slows the healing process down. You
Right.
need some
Right.
inflammation, but
But
if it's
yeah.
prolonged, we just don't want it to be
Yeah.
prolonged, especially. Yeah. So,
Only in emergencies.
right.
Yep.
Cool. What about off days? Did you have off days?
Uh Usually Sundays, and I would just mainly do some chair shooting and then just go into Eric. Aside from that, I really did take those off days, even though it was hard to do. But I knew, coming this week, I'd have 2, 3 games, and I'd want to be training between. You have to take that off day, and it's good for
Right.
the mind. Get away from basketball.
Yeah.
You don't want to overdo it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's
Yep.
important too. Just the
Yep.
mental grind, especially doing it for so long from
Yep.
such a young age. It can be a
Yep.
grind, bro.
For sure. For
So
sure.
yeah, it's
It
good to
burns you out
take
sometimes.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Cool. So, going to your off season now.
Yep.
Sorry.
No. So now that I'm home, so my first workout, it's kind of crazy. It's unique for sure, but I go and lift with a family friend of mine at 4:30. Um, so we work out, weights and stuff like that
Wait,
from
in the
and
morning?
running. Yeah, in the morning. So
Damn.
from 4:30 to 6, and then right after that, I drive down to Redondo Beach, where John opens the gym for me, and I'll get skill work in there from like 6:30 to 8:15 before they have to go to school. So then after that, I'll eat a lot, drink a lot, probably get a nap in, and then I'll go straight to whatever type of recovery I have that day, usually with Eric again. And we'll do that for an hour. We'll do a lot of fascial movement, stretching, stuff like that. And then later in the day, I'll come back, do another skill workout, and then after that, just call it, rest, and repeat the same day or next
Damn.
day, not same day.
And how many days a week are you doing that?
6 days.
Six
Sunday, I'll
days.
take off. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Dang. So what are
Yeah.
you primarily working on? Like, so how do you structure your off season now? Like, are you choosing one thing to prioritize, or is it kind of a
Yep.
collective?
For me, I've always found it hard to just pick one thing and only do that one thing because
Right.
I feel like there's so much things to get better at. In the weight room, it's always kind of the same, building strength while also being mobile and being able to move. Um, you know, Being at the level this year, I see the speed of the game, how much faster it is. So just kind of increasing the speed of my workouts, how fast I shoot during workouts, how much faster I dribble. That's been a big focus, and then just overall, just continuing like the same thing since my freshman year in high school, just the same characteristics of getting better at ball handling, becoming a better finisher. There's certain things that I used to work on, work on like, around the rim finishes. Now that's kind of turned into floaters and runners because there's, 7 footers in the lane. Um, I used to kind of shoot not crazy shots, but like you said, like bag shots when I was in high school. I don't do that anymore. I just straight pin downs or ball screens, handoffs, whatever our offense may be structured towards.
Two dribbles, three
Um,
dribbles.
Yep, max, because you're not
Right.
gonna get more than that. You're
Right.
not there's
Yeah.
maybe 5 players in the country right now that you could say, "Oh, that guy takes 5 dribbles and he can shoot whatever he wants." It's
Right.
less than 1%, and those guys are gonna be lottery picks. So, definitely, tailoring my skill work to, okay, getting the characteristics better, but also what am I gonna look at? What am I gonna see this year? What's gonna be in our offense? And doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's dope.
Yep. Yep.
Cool, bro. Um, yeah, so it's a grind. People don't
Yeah.
understand it is a grind. Like,
Yeah.
and shoot, you
There's
might
no
not
off
even,
season.
there's no off season.
No.
So did you take any time?
When I first got here, so actually this year I dealt with a foot injury. I medically redshirted. So when I first got here, I just took a week or two, just worked with Eric and just kind of got that out of the way. And I knew I needed the rest a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, so I just took that. That's hard to do, but that was about it, to be honest with you.
What was your foot injury?
They couldn't really diagnose it. At first, they thought it was a stress fracture, but it didn't end up being one. So then they just kind of said there's something wrong with that plantar muscle in the sole of my foot, and it
Mhm.
was just bugging me all year. I took 2 months, close to 2 months off, and then I came back. It still was hurting, so I just ended up, saying I'm just gonna, practice and then redshirt and preserve eligibility because that's big nowadays.
Right.
And so, but now that I'm home, I think a lot of it had to do with, just the increase in load and then the shortening of my fascia because, you do a lot of weight room stuff when you get
Right.
to college, try to
Yeah.
bulk you up. So kind of threw a little bit of my movement off. But now we're starting to get that back. So it's feeling better.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with NIL too. So
Ooh.
when you first got to Michigan, NIL hadn't started or had it started?
It had started, it's not really prominent at our school, we don't have that
Mhm.
type of funding, but that's all you hear about nowadays,
Right.
guys, they wanna whatever the case may be, whether you're doing great at your school, you wanna move up, make more money, whether you're doing okay and you wanna test the waters, or, you're not getting what you want and you wanna leave. Any of the 3 scenarios, people are gonna enter the portal. I think something like 2,400 kids this year are expected to enter, and that's out of, like I think there's, like, 3,000 Division I players.
Right.
Um, so yeah, no, it's crazy. It changes the whole landscape, when you throw money into it. And everyone wants to make 6+ figures, so they're gonna play
Right.
for that. Yeah.
Especially for high school ti kids too, because the JUCO years
It's
aren't counting.
impossible for them. Right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so like you really like so like what would you say to your younger self trying to come up in the NIL? Like what would you
Yeah.
like
I
what
mean,
options would you consider? Because it's like
yeah.
it's tough, bro.
I mean, it started when did you graduate high school? 2021?
2020.
2020. Yeah, so like it started then with just, giving people one more year eligibility and then NIL started to come, then people were getting more eligibility. So now with NIL, it's and the whole JUCO rules, it's close to impossible unless you're a top 100 high school kid to get offers because you're competing at 17, 18 years old with a 23-year-old who's been in college for at least 3 years and knows. So
Right.
it's a lot harder. And I mean, if I was my younger self, I would probably just, you got to get in the weight room more. You got to be able to compete physically with the older kids, and everyone's route's different. Whether it's JUCO, whether it's Division III, two, or straight to one, everyone's route is different. But you're gonna get where you're supposed to be, and just have faith in that, and just keep. You got to keep getting better,
Mhm. That's what
and
it's about.
go where you're wanted. Go where you're wanted.
Go where you want it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I second that.
Yeah, because it could be really difficult if you don't.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
Seriously.
Yeah,
All right. Awesome, bro. Um, I appreciate you. This is
yeah.
super
I
dope. I
appreciate you having
think
me on.
I learned a ton.
Yep,
And I think everyone listening learned a
yep,
ton as well. So maybe we can do this again in the
for
future.
sure,
Check
for
in
sure.
maybe like next off season just to get
Yep,
a like a life update, see how you're doing and
yep.
go from there, bro. But we're rooting for
Likewise.
you.
Thank you. Keep doing
And
what you're doing.
yes, sir.
It's
All
not a
right.
lot of people doing it.